Start with a flea flicker to open up the night. And he connects with Galladay.
Sup, everyone. This is Timmy B, and welcome to the Week 12 recap of the Flea Flicker with Joey D and Timmy B. Joey D, feels great to have you back, man. How are you?
Going well. It's Tuesday after another Monday night football with the Eagles. So, as well as I can be. But, it was a good Thanksgiving, nice weekend. So, we're back at it again, back in the rat race.
Absolutely, and we do understand that there is still one game to be played in Week 12. We'll preview that a little bit, but just for recording on our end and editing and all that stuff, it would basically come out on Friday, and we didn't want to have Friday recap and then Saturday picks for the next week. So you get still the midweek episode, but Joe, we both went 2-0 on Thanksgiving, so we had great picks. Unfortunately for our Sunday slate, we started off 0-1, and it wasn't even close as the Atlanta Falcons beat the Las Vegas Raiders by a score of 43-6. Younghoe Koo had 5 or 6 field goals, a career high for him, and I believe a team career high as well. But the Raiders just looked very lackluster, and in my eyes, they gave so much effort into almost beating the Chiefs for a second time last week, and they just looked very exhausted, and it looks like that they just didn't want to be there. What were your thoughts and takeaway from this Falcons dominance?
Yeah, it's shocking. The Raiders have been playing really well this year and, winning the games that they should and hanging with the teams that a lot of people counted them out against. This is definitely a big blow to the Raiders. Not only with their playoff seeding potentially, but just, their confidence and their morale moving forward. You just lost to the Atlanta Falcons, who have already fired their head coach. They have nothing to play for, and you didn't just lose like a bad game. Like, you got blown out.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a good defense, and you could only put up 6 points. This offense did not have Julio Jones, and you let up 44 points. There's a lot of problems for the Raiders to take away from this game. They can bounce back. It's one bad loss. They're still 8-4? Is that right?
They might be 7. They might be 7-4,
something like that. Yeah.
But yeah, the Raiders to me seem like when they're on, they're one of the best teams in the AFC, and they would be a very dangerous wild card team. But when they're off, they're off.
Yeah.
Much like how we saw with the Bills, like when Josh Allen is struggling, the Bills aren't as good, and we've seen good Bills, bad Bills. We've seen good Raiders, bad Raiders. So, they could be dangerous in the wild card, and even a team like the Colts, and we'll talk about them in a few games. Like, when these teams are on, they're very good and can easily make a deep run in the playoffs and beat whoever. But when they're off, man, they are off.
Yeah, you just don't know what you're getting from a team like the Raiders week in, week out. Nobody expected them to beat the Chiefs or to keep it as close in the last game, and then nobody expected them to lose to the Falcons or get as blown out as they did this game. So you don't know what you're getting week in and week out with the Raiders. They're a very, very shaky team.
Yes.
They look good some weeks, and then you see something like this. It's just like, God, everything I thought about the Raiders this season, like, I'm questioning now. So tough for John Gruden and his boys down there in Las Vegas.
Absolutely. And on the other side, credit to the Falcons for still playing. With the interim head coach, a couple of injuries, they still showed up, played some football, and ended up winning the game. So you got to give them credit. Not the best for their draft position, but only helps the Eagles in their draft slot. So we'll see if the Falcons can, play spoiler, because like we said, the Raiders are a good team. Could the Falcons beat the Saints this week or another team down the stretch like the Buccaneers to, hurt their chances of making the playoffs and shaking up that NFC playoff picture? And I think they can. And now it's time to move to a game that I didn't really watch any at all, but the New York Giants beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Scores a little closer than I think that they would have liked it, with a score of 19-17. Daniel Jones goes out, but again, Joe, the value of having a good backup quarterback, Colt McCoy, an NFL veteran, comes in. He manages the game, maintains that lead, and the Giants defense did enough to stop the Bengals from scoring with Brandon Allen as the quarterback, and especially without Mixon and Bernard, and the Giants pull away and currently lead the NFC East. So, Joe, I'll kick it away to you, the NFC East expert. What did you think from this game?
Yeah, it's a good win for the Giants. Because
Yes.
It's not against somebody in the division. It puts them in first. They have some momentum going right now, stringing a couple good wins back to back. I mean, and again, the Eagles only tied the Bengals. So, being able to, beat them, should that come down to a tiebreaker, definitely helps the Giants there. Going into this week, I would say there was only one unit in the entire NFC East that I felt positively about, and it was the Giants defense. Which is shocking because I think when we previewed them to start the season, we talked about how these guys have no names and how, they're like on paper, this should be one of the worst defenses in the NFL. And they're playing well, like kind of like the Dolphins defense that we've talked about. I mean, it's not a lot of big name guys, but they're playing really well together. Good chemistry, playing as just one defensive unit. Props to their D coordinator. I want to say it's Todd McHale, something like that.
Sure.
Or Todd Graham, maybe.
That name sounds a little bit more familiar.
But I think that's right. But what the D coordinator is, he's got these guys playing well. He's got them playing hard. It is against the Bengals without Joe Burrow, without Joe Mixon. But they did their job. I mean, they're still not a good football team. Let's be clear. Like, all the teams in the NFC East are bad, but they have one unit in the defense that is at least respectable, and that's why they're most likely going to win the division. Plus this positive win streak, momentum. I think they're going to kind of keep that going. They also don't have a very difficult schedule to finish out the season. But definitely concerning about the Daniel Jones injury because he is expected to miss time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we saw last night that both the Giants and the football team are both 3-2 in the division. So they won't get another division game until week 17. Giants get the Cowboys, football team get you guys. So it could come down to week 17. And I alluded to it to our guest, Mike, who is a fan of the football team, that had Alex Smith been fully healthy this whole season, maybe instead of 4-7, that they're a game or two better at 5-6, maybe even 6-5. And same thing goes for Saquon. If Saquon has been here this whole season and he didn't get injured,
right,
maybe the Giants have that extra win or two of a potentially against the Eagles on that Thursday night game. So it's just one of those weird years, but the Giants are leading to the division at 4-7. Hopefully, I guess in terms of an Eagles fan, we'll get to your game at the end, but if they win a couple more games, maybe the Eagles are like, all right, cool, we're done. Let's tank. Let's lose. Let's get a good draft pick.
Yeah.
But
I hope that the football team wins the division is my personal preference because they're the one that I would say has the most glaringly obvious need for a quarterback. And whoever doesn't win the division, like all three other teams are going to have top 10 picks. So, I think that the football team, it would be the most beneficial for them not to win the division. So that's why I'm hoping they do win the division.
Yeah, that makes a good point. And now we're moving on to, speaking of drafts, the next game we're talking about is Justin Jefferson and the Minnesota Vikings. They came back. I mean, they went down quickly in the third quarter. Back-to-back fumble recoveries for Jeremy Chin, another rookie that the Eagles could have drafted. Justin Jefferson had 2 touchdowns himself, and Kirk Cousins drives down in the final minutes to go ahead. Panthers had it. Joey Slye missed a field goal at the end. Again, a recurring theme, even though he is, I think, one of the better kickers in the league with his leg. But Vikings win 28-27. Mike and I both went with the Packers, but Joey D, you went with the Vikings, so congratulations.
You meant the Panthers?
Yeah. Me and Mike went with the Panthers. You went with the Vikings, I thought.
Yes. You said the Packers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Whoops. Well, I mean, the Packers would have won anyways, but talk to us about Panthers, Vikings, and Justin Jefferson and Jeremy Chin.
Yeah, I mean, just with those two, like I was up late last night just fuming after the Eagles loss, and just one of the things I was thinking about, I mean, if you draft Justin Jefferson instead of Jalen Reagor and you draft Jeremy Chin instead of Jalen Hurts, the outlook on this team is so much different than it is right now. Makes me so mad. I mean, those guys accounted for 4 touchdowns in that one game. That's 3 more than Jalen Reagor has all season, and way more than Jalen Hurts has. God, don't even. I can't even. So in terms of the game itself, I mean, Panthers had this game. I mean, you're going up against Kirk Cousins, who is not a clutch quarterback. You have him in the perfect position. He has to pass. They get away from Dalvin Cook in the run game. I mean, he does get injured and has to leave that game. And I mean, he had that fumble as well. So, they did a really good job containing Dalvin Cook. So it's definitely disheartening for the Panthers that you did everything right as a defense. I mean, you contained Dalvin Cook, you forced 2 turnovers and score touchdowns off both of those, but you still allow Kirk Cousins to go down there and win. I think Teddy Bridgewater was talking about it. They just had a fourth quarter collapse on offense, just could not keep the ball out of the Vikings offense hands. I mean, you got to put some drives together and help your defense out. It's complementary football, and it's a tough one that they should have won.
Yeah, absolutely. And even going back to a game last week, like the Titans and Ravens, like I was saying, the Titans offense went on a 5-6 minute drive in the fourth quarter to score a touchdown. Ravens went 3 and out on offense, kind of like the Panthers did. And the Titans went on another 5 to 6 minute drive. Like both defenses were just, exhausted and beat. Your offense has to give some time. And if Christian McCaffrey was healthy, this is definitely a game that I think that they would have won, establishing that run game with a better running back and utilizing him. But Vikings pull off with the victory. And now it's time to talk about the Dolphins and the Jets. The Jets are winning 3-0, but the Dolphins win 20-3, and the Jets continue. They are 0-11. Dolphins didn't look great, but the defense did enough against the Jets offense. Joe Flacco proved that he is the best quarterback on the Jets. He has double the touchdowns, a higher QB rating, but Adam Gase and Sam Darnold just wanted to play this game, and Gase made the decision to put in Darnold. Didn't work in their favor. Joe, any thoughts from this Dolphins-Jets win?
Not a lot. I mean, it's crazy how Parker's fantasy value is when Ryan Fitzpatrick is in there, let me tell you. But it's just such an interesting situation in Miami at the quarterback position, and what it means both their short term and their long term. I mean, I really don't know what to make of it. So it's tough. I mean, it's Ryan Fitzpatrick against the Jets. He didn't do great. He didn't do bad. They won. If it's Tua, what's the difference? I feel like even if Tua was in there, it'd be a similar final score. So I just don't know what the Dolphins' kind of plan is here, and it's just a very fascinating situation to kind of follow. But I mean, we know what it is with the Jets. They're the worst team in the NFL. Although I do not know for sure who would win the Eagles versus the Jets. I would not be confident in the Eagles. So I mean, with this offense, God, I'm not going to get it. But can you tell I'm pissed off about it, Tim?
A little bit. we still got about 10 to 11 more games before we get to
We'll get there. Let's get past the Jets. We're good.
Yeah, absolutely. A quick thing about the Jets and Dolphins too. Even though everybody wants to dominate the Jets, I mean, for the Dolphins side, this is just look, let's win this game. Let's beat the Jets, and we'll move on, and we'll get back to our dominant ways. And we're moving to another Florida team here, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Almost came back against the Cleveland Browns, and I said this on Saturday. I said I would not be surprised if the Browns were to lose this game because it's the Cleveland Browns. But they pull away the 27-25 victory over the Jaguars. Jaguars still have 1 win, so my preseason prediction is still looking good somehow all the way in Week 12 after they won Week 1. Joey D, you're 6-1, so we'll kick it off with you so far. Browns Jaguars. I mean, Jarvis Landry, a great game from him, and it was nice to see him score some touchdowns finally.
Yeah, I mean, the Browns are they're not that good. They're 8-3. It's a quiet 8, but nobody really believes in them. I mean, it was not a good game against the Eagles. It was not a good game against the Jaguars. I mean, those are both poor teams that you are within a 1-score game at the end. They very well could have lost both of those games. And, it's I think they're more of a fraud at 8-3 than the Steelers are at 10-0 personally. I know, you're the expert on the AFC North. But it's tough. I mean, they've got Jarvis. He's doing well. Nick Chubb's doing well. I love to see that. Just Baker keeps missing these throws. Every game, it's like a terrible throw where, and you just got it. Throw an overall pick. You got to be better than this. You got to clean that up. You got to hit the throws that are there. It seems like he can hit these difficult throws, but when it's wide open, he just like he's shocked. He can't believe it and just overthrows it or something. So I mean, you got to clean that up. You got to be efficient there, and your defense has to be able to do better than allowing 25 points to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Colin Johnson, rookie out Texas, Mike Glennon, like you're letting these guys carve your defense up. It's supposed to be the strength of your team, and right now it does not look that way.
Yeah, and this is a question I want to ask you, Joe, and I guess this is a good time because, and I don't know if it was this play that kind of triggered everything, but a lot of people were kind of slandering on Twitter, being like, I believe Ryan Clark tweeted out being like, yo, DBs, I'm so sorry, like, I should be defending you when you make mistakes like we all do with quarterbacks. And there was like a bunch of people talking on Twitter being like, why is it never the quarterback's fault? Why is it always, well, they didn't block this, you should have caught this was tipped. Why is it, except for Lamar Jackson. We all blame Lamar Jackson, but we'll get to that later. But it seems like every other quarterback, it's like, well, this happened and this happened. Like, he didn't expect him to be, So, like, what are your thoughts? Should we get some announcers and commentators just being like, yo, like, that was just straight up a bad pass or that was a bad decision? And I agree with people like Ryan Clark. Like, we shouldn't be always making excuses because it's a quarterback. We should flat out come out and say, like, yo, this was a bad play, decision, choice, mistake, whatever, instead of being like, well, the left guard didn't block this guy, so, ABC.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's tough because it's like that chicken versus the egg concept.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a discussion that all of Philadelphia is having right now. I mean, Carson Wentz has been the worst quarterback in the NFL, but we're also on our 10th different offensive line combination. We have no talent. We're unhealthy. Like, it's so many different things. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, what separates an elite quarterback from a good or average quarterback is they can elevate those players around you to still find a way to win, to still make those guys look like they're superstars. I mean, Aaron Rodgers did it for years. Tom Brady did it for years. These are the guys that, are elevating people that, otherwise would not be very relevant. And just making them better because of it. I mean, Cam Newton did it in 2015. He elevated the whole team that, and I mean, they had Jericho Cotchery as one of their starting wide receivers.
What a name.
If you're getting elite quarterback play, right? If you're getting elite quarterback play, it elevates the whole team around you. If you're not, you have to have a lot of other people kind of pick up that slack around you. And I mean, with the Browns, that's where they're kind of getting lucky. I mean, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, these guys are really who are picking up the slack and that offensive line. But that defense, those receivers, I mean, Jarvis Landry had a good game, but outside of him, since Beckham has gone down, who's really been consistent there? So, I mean, I think you got to call it like it is when a quarterback isn't playing well. I mean, he's not in a great situation, but the number one overall draft pick, you should be able to. I mean, you knew you're going into a tough situation. Number one overall pick. They have the worst record in the league, so that's why they drafted you, to be able to elevate the people around you to be better, despite everything going wrong. And if you can't do that, then you're not elite. You're just another average, good quarterback in the end, which I think is average.
Yeah, and I think we are starting to see some more calling out of quarterbacks or even the media's perception, because a couple of weeks ago, Matt Stafford had a sick sidearm pass, and everybody was like, well, if Mahomes made that, like, it would be all over ESPN and NFL Network. And,
right.
It did get the recognition that it deserved, but people were like, yo, if that was like a Mahomes or a Rodgers, ESPN heads would explode. And, I think it's okay to say, like, yo, this quarterback had a bad game. I mean, obviously for some younger guys, like I mentioned, like a Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, that's fine. Like, they're going to get that slander. But it's perfectly okay to say, like, all right, Russell Wilson just had a bad week. He made some bad decisions, and he just had a bad week. Aaron Rodgers had a bad week. It's always like, well, he had, the Eagles.
Tom Brady.
Right, Tom Brady, even Mahomes. Like, they're like, all right, well, sometimes, like, the running back was injured or there was no Travis Kelce. It's like, we can go out and flat out say, like, hey, like, the defense did great. So-and-so had a bad game. But enough of that, Joe. Speaking of Josh Allen and the Bills, that's our next game we're talking about. Chargers come into town, got Eckler back. He actually had a great production day, especially for fantasy, putting up about 18 points. I wish he scored a touchdown or two, but he still had 11 or 12 catches out of the backfield. Unfortunately, not enough as the Bills win 27-17. My two takeaways, or three takeaways, were Bills, didn't have a letdown game. I mentioned against some top offenses, they do give up a bunch of points and end up being in shootouts. And then two, coming off the bye, their defense really, held that offense. And then number three, Anthony Lynn needs to make some better decisions. I mean, the game was out of reach. They were down 10 points. But when you have 4th and goal at the 1, the offensive line went into pass protection, and Herbert did a quarterback sneak. So he didn't get the touchdown to go down 3 points. And, it was the last play of the game. But still, you guys got to be on the same page with your play calling and your decisions. But, Joe, what were your thoughts on this Bills-Chargers?
It's another example of the Chargers finding a weird or just crazy different way to lose. Like every week it's something. They complete that Hail Mary, and the receiver is like, spike catches. He's like, and then they call a running play with like 10 left. So like, I mean, you're right there. Like all you need to do is spike the ball and then 3 passes to the end zone. Why are you running the ball? Like what? There's the coaching there in that situation. And I think that's a huge indictment on Anthony Lynn. I mean, the way they have continued to lose this year is different every week and heartbreaking in a way. This is a specific example of where it's that there's a coaching breakdown somewhere because the team was not prepared for a situation like that. And then, then that kind of raises the question of, okay, well, all these close losses that they've been in is also, coming down to coaching, just being prepared and being on the same page with you. That's, kind of the question I'm wondering now, because that's just such an embarrassing display. I mean, you're an NFL team, and we've seen high school teams execute a better, a 2-minute drill, so to speak, in that regard. So I mean, that's terrible. And but on the flip side, for the Bills, they did a really good job kind of game plan, slowing down Herbert, containing those receiving out like Williams. And I mean, play by the Bills. They've got a couple trick plays. That Brian Dabble guy, solid offensive coordinator there. I wouldn't scheming up some plays in Philadelphia, all right? So, we'll see what happens. But that guy Dabble, head coach consideration next offseason for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And now it's time to move on to the next game, Joe. And I have another question for you. This is against the same team, same defense, same coaching scheme. Would you rather have your quarterback throw for 170 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, adding on 31 rush yards, so about 200 total yards? Or would you rather have your quarterback throw for 249 yards on the same amount of passing attempts, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and added on 55 rush yards for about 300 total yards of offense? Which quarterback would you rather have?
Is this the Patriots and the Cardinals game we're talking about here? This is what it sounds like to me.
Yes.
Wow.
Player number 1 is Kyler Murray's stats against the Patriots in perfect weather, sunny weather in New England. Player number 2 are Lamar Jackson's stats against the Patriots in a monsoon, hurricane, whatever that rainstorm was. And same amount of pass attempts. Lamar was 24 for 34. Kyler was 23 for 34. And just same outcome. Both teams lost. Patriots win 20-17. But again,
that's what I was going to say. Both teams lost, though, right?
both teams did lose. We all picked the Cardinals, and so Joe, you're now at 7-2. I'm at 6-3, and our guest Mike is at 4-3 on the week. But he'll bounce back. Don't worry. But yeah, I mean, this was a little shocking to me. And well, with Stephon Gilmore back on DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, sometimes Gilmore had some good plays. Sometimes Hopkins had good plays. I think one play they both had pass interference somehow. But again, Bill Belichick is scheming up a great play against a great offense and a great offensive scheme with Cliff Kingsbury, and Cam Newton did just enough. I mean, I believe the Patriots also got a touchdown from a short field created by an interception. So, I mean, Patriots win 2017. Joe, take it down.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know what to think about the Cardinals either. Like you were talking about the Raiders, like, you know, they look so good at points in the season, and then they look so bad. Like, I don't get it. This is supposed to be one of the best offenses in the NFL. Kyler Murray, like, you're having an MVP campaign. Like, what is happening? You know, I don't know if it's maybe he's not healthy, or maybe, you know, this is one of the best defensive-minded head coaches in the NFL with Bill Belichick of all time, you know. So, you know, it might have been just a good scheme against them, and they do have a good matchup. I mean, Stephon Gilmore and DeAndre Hopkins have been going at it since, you know, they played against each other at USC and Clemson. So, I mean, you know, they've had that familiarity for years. It's a good matchup there. I mean, if you take away DeAndre Hopkins, I know Larry Fitzgerald didn't play. You know, Christian Kirk didn't really do all that much. You know, there wasn't really that much more for Kyler to do. Like, I mean, they took away DeAndre Hopkins, and then it's like, what do you do? You know, for the Cardinals, that's what it seems like. You know, they don't really have I mean, Christian Kirk, like, he's hit or miss. He can have these, you know, monster, you know, like 70-yard bomb touchdowns, but then
and don't forget, consistent. Larry Fitzgerald was on the COVID list, so he didn't play either. So normally that would be at least a second option or decoy for Christian Kirk or Andy Isabella, or even the tight end to go up against the third or nickel back. Obviously losing Larry Fitzgerald was key for the Cardinals offense. But you're right, Kirk and even Isabella, they've just been inconsistent, and they drafted them early on to be that consistent second guy when Larry retires, and third guy right now. Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, you never go into a game and expect DeAndre Hopkins to get shut down, or, you know, for him to get taken out of the game plan because he's so good. But, you know, when you're going up against a team like Bill Belichick and he's got Stephon Gilmore, you better be prepared for that possibility, and you better have an answer. And the Cardinals did not. So that's what it came down to. I mean, I think you're hitting it around the head. People are not giving Kyler Murray the grief that, you know, people gave Lamar Jackson this year. I mean, it's the exact same situation, exact same scenario. And, you know, Lamar had a better game, and people are not really ripping him, like, not really ripping Kyler like they did Lamar earlier this year. It's very interesting, kind of a dichotomy there. You know, I feel like a lot of Ravens fans, they're extremely defensive of Lamar, and, you know, like, if anybody says anything negative about Lamar and not someone else, they notice it. But I mean, you know, there is, you know, something to be said there for both of these players. I mean, Lamar has regressed from last year, but that was predictable.
Absolutely.
You know, Kyler has regressed since the beginning of the year. You know, it's, you know, these guys have to find a way to elevate their game and, you know, change their approach, because, you know, the NFL, they adapt so well. Defensive coordinators are just ready. And, you know, especially, you know, in today's NFL, defenses are so fast. Like, you know, that read option, you know, just a few years ago when Colin Kaepernick was running wild, you know, that's just not there as much anymore. So teams are committing to taking away the run for Kyler and Lamar. And, you know, with Lamar, it's force you to beat him with without Mark Andrews or Hollywood Brown. And for the Cardinals, force you to beat him without DeAndre Hopkins. So both of those teams are struggling to find an answer on offense when their game plan doesn't go, you know, according to plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And my thing is, as a Ravens fan too, and I think it's been the last 2 weeks against the Titans and Patriots with Lamar having like very good stats, and it wasn't his fault. At least the media isn't so much have been recently like, oh, Lamar can't win the big games, blah, blah, blah. Like, he's putting up good stats. And I think the rest of the league and media are kind of understanding, like, hey, like, especially now where we are, and we'll get there. I mean, we lost Ronnie Stanley. We lost Marshall Yanda to retirement. Our wide receivers aren't developing like we thought they would from year one to year two. I mean, Andrews is, without Hayden Hurst and now Nick Boyle. So I think people are starting to understand, being like, oh, okay, like, this like offense doesn't have the weapons that we thought they did, and losing two all-pro linemen, certainly one to retirement, one to injury, certainly don't help.
Hold on, Tim. I'm not sure which team you're talking about. Are you talking about the Ravens or the Philadelphia Eagles right now? Because you're describing an entire offensive line gone, a lack of development from receivers, a tight end, and more injuries everywhere. Like, my God, like, look at what the Ravens are doing, everything they have going on, and they're still competitive. And then look at the Philadelphia Eagles and what's going on there. Like, you know, the exact same situation.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that the Eagles are equipped to handle this since we've dealt with it since 2017. We're not. Good teams don't do this. We're not.
And we can get there to the Eagles as well. But, I mean, and you've been saying something's got to change, at least for the Ravens. We still have one of the best front offices. We still have Eric DeCosta. We still have a great coach, and we still have a great culture, I'll say, within our organization. And we are known for being one of the more well-respected and better organizations in the NFL. And speaking of the Ravens, the team that we lost to last week, the Tennessee Titans, Joe, happy Tractor Cedo season. We are back. It is late November, early December, and we're back. I wish I changed my pick to the Titans because they got the ball first, and I believe the first 3 plays, Derrick Henry ran for like 6 or 7 yards each time, 4 or 5 yards before contact, and at that point, I was like, all right, the Titans are winning this game. Tractor Cedo's back. Titans end up winning, where's the score? 45-26, scoring 35 points in the first half. Joe, give us your thoughts from Tractor Cedo in this game.
Yeah, going into this game, we knew DeForest Buckner was not going to play because of COVID. And then I think one of their other top defensive linemen, I want to say Autry or Aubrey, something like that. He either got injured or also was a contact trace or tested positive. He didn't play either. So the Colts' strength is their defense. And their best defensive player, maybe their best player on their team, and another one of their top run stoppers are not available against Derrick Henry. That was all I needed to know to make my pick. So this game went exactly the way I expected it to in terms of Derrick Henry running wild. The play action being there for Ryan Tannehill, able to hit A.J. Brown in space and run after catch. How about that onside kick recovery for a touchdown by A.J. Brown too? Love it.
That was nice. That was
nice.
Love
to see that.
And yeah, I mean, there wasn't too much else to say because Derrick Henry ran wild. A.J. Brown had that a nice long run after the catch. I know as Ravens and Eagles fans, we would love to see that separation in that open field speed.
Run after the catch? What is that? I've never seen that in my career. Oh, my God.
And then the Colts, you know, they at least attempted to come back because last week they were saying that they were down like 24-10 at halftime, come back and beat the Packers. They were down again 2-3 scores, and they did make it a game eventually, and then that onside kick that A.J. Brown put it away. So that's a huge game. They both split, so we'll see. And the Colts did lose to the Jaguars in week 1, so we'll see how that division – that's a huge loss for the Colts because I believe they both have the same – they're both 8-3, I believe, or at least 7-4. They're tied at least, so that's going to be interesting. And, Joe, now it's time for an interesting game as the New Orleans Saints go into Denver and win 31-3 as expected. Shout out to the Denver Broncos for scoring 3 points with Kendall Hinton, a practice squad wide receiver. And my big takeaway, and I did watch a little of it because I want to see him play, almost every pass play that they called was like 20 to 30 yards down the field. Give this man a couple of short slants or a screen at least to get him a completion or two. He only had 1 completion, 2 interceptions.
If that's who's gonna be throwing the ball, what do you think the defense is gonna expect? Like those short passes, like those quick passes. Like, you know, if this is the hand you're dealt, you got to roll with it. And if you know defenses are expecting you not to be able to pass, like they're selling out to stop the run. If your only hope in this game is to make them pay, just hit on some deep passes. Unfortunately, they couldn't. You know, I mean, they don't have the receivers or the quarterbacks.
I at least would have done that little like push pass where you like just toss it to your wide receiver for at least to get the completion or two, especially with a guy like KJ Hamler. I know they did a couple of reverses. They didn't work well with him, but I mean, and, you know, on the other side, Taysom Hill just did his thing, couple of rushing touchdowns, and the Saints win this game. It was just one of those games. And, you know, I mean, shout out to Kendall Hinton. I mean, that's just major props. The night before, you're practicing on the practice squad for a wide receiver, and then all of a sudden you're the starting quarterback of an NFL team.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, the biggest takeaway from this is all of these keyboard warriors, these people who sit on their couch and watch the games like us and who see Josh Allen or Baker Mayfield miss a wide open throw, and we think in our heads and we say on our Twitter and whatnot, like, I could make that throw. I could go in there and I could play better than him. No, we could not. No, we could not. That Kendall Hinton, he played quarterback in high school. He won a state championship, at least one state. Yeah, there we go. 2 state championships as a QB in high school. Played receiver, since then essentially. But I mean, this is a guy who's got way more experience at QB than most of us ever will, and he still only completed 1 pass in the NFL. Like, it is the most difficult position to play. That everything is so fast. I mean, if you're an average quarterback in the NFL, it is impressive, and we cannot just take stuff like that for granted when this type of example is right in front of us. I mean, again, this guy, he had no time to prepare. He had nothing. It was admirable. The Broncos tweeted it out themselves. A football game was played. The final score is what it is. It is still really cool to see, a guy with no preparation whatsoever, be thrust into this situation and at the very least make the best of it. It's huge for his brand. It's a really cool story. But at the end of the day, I can't believe the NFL had them play this game. I mean, I get it. I guess it does meet the rules and agreements that everybody kind of agreed upon at the beginning of the season, in terms of the QBs not all wearing their masks and being in the same place. So they're all contact traces. So it's a little bit of a different situation than, obviously the Ravens and the Steelers. It's interesting that, a whole QB room is eliminated because of contact tracing. They don't postpone it. There's essentially an outbreak going on in Baltimore, position for, across position groups, and they do postpone it. So I understand why, they played the game, because that's the rules that the NFL agreed, but it essentially incentivizes a team to have an outbreak over, have a position group get, be contact traces. If the entire team gets it, or it's across every position group, then your game is going to get postponed. If it's one position group that gets it, you're still going to have to play without your quarterback. It don't matter, but now if, Philip Lindsay tests positive, Jerry Jeudy tests positive as well. Oh, okay, fine. Now we'll postpone your game. It's why would you incentivize players to get it? It doesn't make any sense to me. I think it was a terrible look for the NFL to make them play that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you nailed it going back a minute or so when you were saying about average quarterbacks. And I said earlier, that's how valuable backup quarterbacks are. And people are like, how the hell is Joe Flacco, Nick Foles, Ryan Fitzpatrick, even a Josh McCown? It's how are Colt McCoy? How are these guys still on NFL rosters? It's because of this situation. Well, obviously, if your quarterback goes down, I would trust a Joe Flacco, Ryan Fitzpatrick, a Nick Foles, Colt McCoy to at least have a full week of practice as the starting quarterback and have a good shot of winning the football game. And that's why the backup quarterback position is so important. And you were saying with the
well, that's why we spent a 2nd-round draft pick on one, Tim.
Hey, and this wasn't the second time it happened. Remember Kevin Kolb? He was a 2nd-round pick.
Oh yeah, we traded him though, so we'll see what happens with Hurts.
Yeah, and you were saying with the situation, I think it wasn't more of because it happened. I think it was when it happened, because this news came out Saturday night. I would assume the Saints traveling basically across the country were already in Denver. And because of the contact tracing and everything, you would have had to postpone it to at least Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it is, 3, 4, 5 days. So they're just saying hey, Saints and Broncos, you guys are just chilling in Denver until we know when we can play a game. That would be my guess. But I do agree with you. The NFL has been a little questionable with some of their protocols and laying down the hammer and being this is it. This is what we're doing. While some other games like the Ravens and Steelers, we'll play it when we play it. But now, Joe, let's move on to the next game. We're going to call this the South Carolina Gamecock Bowl to give us some positivity as the San Francisco 49ers go into LA, defeat the Rams on a last-second field goal. First-round pick, defensive tackle, Javon Kinlaw with the pick six, his first interception and his first touchdown, I believe, or his second interception. Either way, first touchdown. And then Deebo Samuel coming back off injury again. Whew, man, we need this guy 100% healthy for every single game because he is electric. Aaron Donald, he better know who Deebo Samuel is now. But a disappointing performance from the Rams, great performance from the 49ers, who are now relocating to Arizona for the next couple of weeks. Joey, do your thoughts on the Gamecock game?
Oh, yeah. I mean, love to see it from Deebo and Javon Kinlaw. Great for the brand, especially with South Carolina needing a little bit more positive news regarding their football program these days. So, that's good to see. I mean, the Rams lost to the 49ers both times this year, right? Like,
absolutely correct.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, Aaron Donald better know who Deebo Samuel is now after losing to him twice this year. This matchup is so bad for the Rams. I don't get it. I mean, the 49ers defense is not healthy. Like, Nick Bosa's not out there. Solomon Thomas is not out there. Like, they've still got some guys, but their D coordinator, Robert Saleh, Richard Sherman was talking him up a lot after the game, a lot of head coaching consideration for him moving forward. I mean, if you're, an owner looking for a defensive-minded head coach, that's who you go for. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey Lurie, I hope you're listening. But
he definitely is.
He's definitely listening. He definitely pays attention, listens to this podcast. Me and old Jeff, we text, we're boys. But I mean, it's Jared Goff. I mean, Jared Goff and Sean McVay, like, this offense is just so inconsistent. I mean, one week it looks like the best in the NFL. The next week it looks like it is easy to figure out and stop. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, Jared Goff had an awful game. Cooper Kupp didn't do anything. Defense, making the plays that they need to help your offense out. I mean, you're going up against Nick Mullins, for God's sake. This is, just a few weeks ago when played the Seahawks and won. I mean, you're going up against Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and Jalen Ramsey takes DK Metcalf out of the game. Russell Wilson have a very good game on his end, and the Rams are able to win that game. I don't understand how the defense was able to match up better against Seattle, the Seattle starters, versus San Francisco's backups. Like, no George Kittle either. Like, I don't get it. Rams are one of the most puzzling teams in the NFL. It's just another team like the Raiders, like the Cardinals, like the Seahawks, like these teams have, like the Buccaneers, like Packers, like everyone has question marks, I mean, outside of the Chiefs and maybe the Steelers, everybody has question marks. There is nobody, especially in the NFC, like nobody is that good to separate themselves above the rest in the NFC right now. So, I mean, this is the Rams' chance to do that. That division is so interesting. Like, it's just wide open. Like, I don't know what to expect every week.
I mean, even the 49ers can win because they're 5-6. George Kittle, I believe, is on pace to come back in week 14 or 15. So that's 2 to 3 games right there potentially for George Kittle. And you said it with the Raiders. I think the Rams, when they're on, they look like 2 years ago, Rams 12-4, 13-3 going to the Super Bowl. But when they are off, they're off. And you just mentioned the Chiefs, Joe. And I know I Snapchatted you this morning because I was very curious. Tyreek Hill was drafted in the 5th round. And I know 5th round wide receivers are a crapshoot. But who picked right before the Chiefs took Tyreek Hill?
The Philadelphia Eagles.
Yes. I
looked right before Tyreek Hill was drafted. Who picked right before Tyreek Hill was drafted in the 5th round? The Philadelphia Eagles.
I was curious because I looked
Ty, a backup swing tackle. He's no longer on the Eagles.
I looked it up when there was he was like the 5th round 100 whatever pick. I was like, I got to know how close the Eagles were. And when I saw that, now again, and fifth round wide receivers are a little bit of a crapshoot. Who knows if the Eagles did take him, if it would be, he would be as good, or, it could be another Eagles receiver. Obviously, there's some coaching and development, but we know that the talent is
No,
there.
he wouldn't be as good. Patrick Mahomes, yeah.
But he had 300 yards in the first quarter? Oh my God, this was a dominant game. And somehow Tom Brady and the Buccaneers made this a football game. Chiefs only win by 3 points, 27-24. Joey D, give us your thoughts on Brady versus Mahomes round 4.
Yeah, obviously the interesting matchup is, the handshake at the end of the game. I mean, Tom Brady, what the hell, dude? You'll shake someone's hand if you think they deserve to be shook, like Patrick Mahomes, but you're going to keep losing to Nick Foles and you can't stomach it, so you're not going to shake his hand. My God. So obvious matchup to watch there moving forward. But I mean, God, I don't understand the Buccaneers defense. Their game plan going into is we're going to put Carlton Davis one-on-one with Tyreek Hill, play single high safety, and we're just going to, ride it out. That was the first half game plan. They couldn't make it to halftime to make an adjustment. I mean, after the first quarter, like you said, over 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, unreal. The man's beat me. This one guy I'm playing in fantasy didn't even set his lineup, had 2 people get 0, and I still lost because freaking Tyreek Hill gets 60. So pissed. So, I mean, it's unreal. I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Tyreek Hill, it's Andy Reid, it's Travis Kelce. That offense is so fast. It is just a track race every game. I mean, you just throw it deep. Nobody can outrun Tyreek Hill. Just put some air under it and throw it 90 yards down the field and go let him run under it. Do that every play. Nobody can stop it. So, I mean, Bucs defense, they've got to figure this out. This is at the beginning of the year looking like a dominant defense. They've really fallen off over the last few weeks and have not really lived up to that billing. It just doesn't seem like the chemistry is there for the Bucs, for the offense, defense, and special teams. We talk about complementary football, and it just doesn't seem like it's all there for the Buccaneers. We don't see that, smooth like the Patriots with Tom Brady had been. It's just not what to expect every drive, while with this Buccaneers team, you don't. I mean, it could be a huge play to Mike Evans or Chris Godwin or Antonio Brown. It could be a 3 and out. It could be a check down to Ronald Jones he takes to the house. It could be a 1-yard game by Leonard Fournette. You don't know what you're going to get every single play. Yeah, they've got a lot of weapons, a lot of big names, but if you don't really have an offensive identity and you can't be consistent, in any phase, you're not going to win a championship. So just another team in the NFC, like we talked about, one of the top teams, statistically or based on their record, but, they've got holes. They've got flaws, they're invincible. These playoffs are going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the Buccaneers side, too, because the Saints, if they beat the Falcons this week, that gives them, I believe, that would make them 11-2, 5-0 in the division. So 3 games ahead, and you wouldn't have the division tiebreaker at all. So that would unofficially clinch for the Saints more or less. So now the Buccaneers are got to think, all right, we got to fight for this 5 seed with teams like the Cardinals and the 49ers and the Rams, who they lost to the Rams, so they don't have that tiebreaker either. But that 5th seed going at the Giants or at the football team looks a lot better than going to Lambeau Field or Seattle or LA for another rematch. So they better be fighting for that 5 seed. And hopefully, I believe their schedule does get a little bit better. I think they end the season twice with the Falcons 2 times in 3 weeks. So they do have some should be wins. So we'll check that out, Joe. Sunday Night Football. I'm not going to lie. I watched the first quarter. I knew it was going to be a blowout, and it was, as the Packers won 41-25. Mitchell Trubisky, not good. Shocker. But Aaron Rodgers was throwing the ball around to a bunch of receivers. The defense got a couple of turnovers. I believe they had a touchdown as well. I'm not too sure, but Packers win 41-25. I went to bed to watch Netflix at the end of the first quarter. I didn't want to watch any more of that game, Joe. Did you watch this game, and what were your thoughts?
I did not. I also watched, I think, just the first quarter and then the highlights the next morning. Rodgers and Devontae Adams just continues to be one of the, top QB wide receiver 1-2 punches in the NFL. I mean, it's really fun to watch just this great QB and wide receiver play. And then some of the other wide receivers stepping up for the Packers as well. I mean, this is a good Bears defense. So it's not really, nothing to sneeze at that, Aaron Rodgers, had a good game. He threw, what was it, 4 touchdowns, I think?
Probably.
Against the Chicago Bears defense. On the flip side, the Bears, my God, like, figure it out, dude. Like, Matt Nagy is just ripping every quarterback in every press conference. Like, they have no plan on. Allen Robinson wants to get out of there so bad. He's just liking all the fans' tweets of like where he should go next year. I mean, get this man. Allen Robinson is too good to be playing with, Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky right now, just being wasted there. I feel for him, man. He's played with Blake Bortles and now Mitch Trubisky. Like, there's a rule of it. If you're Allen Robinson, you gotta hope that he can make it to a good team next year with a good quarterback. I think he's going to be a free agent, so I'm sure that's going to be the number one thing he's like, where can I go where there's actually a quality QB? And why would I not go to the Ravens?
Yes. He looks very, very good in purple and black. I will say that. I'm surprised. I'm sure we probably put in an offer at the trade deadline, but that's definitely a wide receiver that I would like. Also wouldn't mind trading for Julio Jones if he is on the market. But, Joe, now it's time to move to Monday night. We're about 55 minutes in right now, just basic time. So I'm going to give you all the time to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles losing to the Seattle Seahawks 23-17. The score does not indicate how the game was. The Eagles had a very late garbage time Hail Mary. Great play. Then they went for 2 to ruin the spread of Seahawks 6.5 for everybody who had Seahawks minus 6.5. I'm sorry, but Joe, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to say. I mean, going into the week, there was so much chatter about Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, and, these reports coming out that, he didn't go to the Browns game because he's frustrated. He's walking out of practices because he's disgusted with what he's seeing. There's a report that Jalen Hurts is getting increased first team reps at QB this week. Jeffrey Lurie, there's a report that, he said if Wentz struggles, bench him for Hurts. This is all that's been talked about all week. And, you come out on offense and your defense is fighting. Your defense is playing with some fire. A lot of stupid penalties on that first drive, just unsportsmanlike conducts. But I love the aggressiveness. I love the physicality. I love, just seeing some fight out of the defense in the first half. So, I mean, for the offense to come out in the first half and have -5 yards of offense after a first quarter, it's just 3 and out. And it's bad everywhere on offense. I mean, Wentz is missing people that are open. The offensive line is letting free rushers come in easily. Receiver, Alshon Jeffrey. Why? Like, it's cooked. He can't run. Like I forget which announcer said it. He's like, Alshon Jeffrey running a speed out. Oh, well, not much of a speed out with Alshon. That route took a long time to develop. I just don't understand. So we hear all these reports about Jalen Hurts. The offense is trash. And the second quarter is about to start. And in my head, I was thinking, this is when Jalen Hurts is about to come in. You put in Jalen Hurts for the second down play. He gets something positive or a first down. You have another play called for third down or for the next play so that, you can use him as a passer. Because they talked about having Wentz not be on the field when Hurts is on. So that way it's not like, Wentz out there at wide receiver and the defense doesn't need to pay attention. When that happens, you don't respect Hurts as a passer. And they start out that second quarter. Wentz is off the field. What do you know? Hurts completes a pass to Alshon Jeffrey. There's the first catch for Alshon Jeffrey since he's been back. And then what do? It's 3rd and 8, and you put Wentz right back in for 3rd and long, and he gets sacked.
Yeah.
Why? Like, what is the logic here? I don't understand. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. If you're going to use one of them, use one of them. If you're not, you're not. To me, it says clearly that Doug Peterson did not want Jalen Hurts. That was not his pick. Carson Wentz was Doug Peterson's pick.
Yeah.
When Carson Wentz when Doug Peterson became the head coach, we traded up to get Carson Wentz. We traded away Sam Bradford to start Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is the QB that Doug Peterson said, I'm hitching my wagon to this guy. Even with how bad Carson Wentz has been this year, 32nd out of 32nd quarterback, like pretty much all statistics, turnovers, interceptions, passer rating, every statistic you don't want to be leading in, he's leading. And you're still not putting Jalen Hurts in for him. To me, this is just so clearly just some disconnect between the front office and the coaching staff. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Like, we were talking about earlier, we could have had, like, the outlook on this team would be completely different if instead of Jalen Reagor and Jalen Hurts, we take Justin Jefferson, Jeremy Chin. What about last year if instead of taking J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, we take DK Metcalf? Instead of Andre Dillard, we take Josh Jacobs. And then we could use that Miles Sanders pick on something else. I mean, obviously hindsight is always 20/20, but there is a lot about this season that is not hindsight. There's a lot that people were saying going into this season, like, hey, this team is the oldest roster in the NFL. This team is the second most expensive roster in the NFL. This team struggled at wide receiver last year, and our solution was to draft 3 rookie receivers and bank on Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson getting healthy. Everybody knew these decisions would go poorly. Everybody knew that linebacker had been under-prioritized, and these bums, unless D-line was just lights out all year, that these linebackers would be exposed. These are not, out of left field situations that have come up. I mean, it has all come to a head, and just terrible contracts, terrible drafting. It starts with Howie Roseman. He's got to go. In my opinion, you got to fire everybody. At this point, I said at the beginning of this year that I expected the Eagles to win this division because we had Doug Peterson, same head coach, Jim Short, same defensive coordinator, Carson Wentz, same QB, Howie Roseman, your same core, no changes. All the other teams have brand new coaching staffs. It's a shortened offseason. There's no excuse for how bad the Eagles have been this year. None. I mean, it starts with Howie, but we expected Doug to be able to rally the troops like he has in the past. He has not. After this game, he apparently in his interview, he was saying, I take pride in myself calling the plays, but, might be time to look into somebody else calling plays. I mean, I really think you got to blow it all up. Like, you got to get rid of Howie, and you got to figure out these contracts, and you got to figure out, what you're going to do to, be competitive, like watchable. I mean, this is awful on offense. Like, I don't want to watch this team. And that's the only reason I would say put in Jalen Hurts, just so it's a little bit more of a bearable offense to watch. But the long-term goal for this team is Carson Wentz. I mean, you're hitched to him. Like, this contract is unreal. You can't move on from him until 2023 at the earliest. So if even when he does this bad, you're not going to pull him for the second-round quarterback that you just drafted, why did you draft him? Why? I don't get it. So you gotta get Howie Roseman out of there because he's mismanaged the draft, the roster, the salary cap, injury management, all this. He's got to go. But so the new GM, whoever he is, he's going to come in. It's clear rebuild. We're going to be bad the next few years. One way or the other, we're going to be bad. That's it. There's no, sugarcoating it. We're not going to be good for the foreseeable future. I don't know why you would keep Doug Peterson around for that. All the fans are going to be calling for his head when, we're not playing well and having a bad season, but it's also to be expected. We're in a rebuild. So I love Doug. I love what he's done. I do think that he is overall a good coach, but I think this year has been, the worst year of everyone's career. And I think that it's all come to a head. And, you can't put him through, years of rebuild. I just think you got to start from scratch, and you got to blow it all up. And, something's got to give. I mean, I wouldn't have been shocked at all if Doug Peterson had gotten fired after this game. I mean, with the way that the offense looked in the first half against the 32nd ranked passing defense in the NFL in the Seattle Seahawks. And your quarterback's struggling. Your receivers are cheeks. Run the damn ball. My God, I know that the Seahawks have a good D-line. They're good in the front seven, good run D and a bad secondary. But your offense can't pass the ball. Stop trying to do it. Just hand the ball off. Miles Sanders, 6 carries, 15 yards. It's the same thing. If we're going to use a second-round draft pick on a running back, he's going to be our feature back. Let's treat him like it. If we're going to use a second-round pick on a quarterback, let's do something with them. Like, I don't get this. There's such a disconnect here, again, between the front office, the coaching staff, the owners, the players. You've got to blow it all up, and you got to start from scratch, and you got to get ahead of it, because you cannot delude yourself into thinking, if we make these one or two couple changes, next year, we're only a few games back from the division lead. Yeah, because the division leader has 4 freaking wins. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna calm down. But I'm so mad that I let myself get this worked up, because all going into the week, I knew we would lose. I knew we'd be bad. And I let myself get caught up in the first half of the game. I was like, oh my God, it's a 1-score game, against the Seahawks. Our defense is playing really well.
I told you.
If we beat the Seahawks, any Super Bowl runs back on. Anything's possible. But no, I'm done. I can't. I was up late last night just fuming. I couldn't sleep. Having me so pissed off. I was tired because it was late, but I couldn't sleep because I was mad and couldn't stop thinking about it. I was trying to think about who was available when we drafted Andre Dillard, and who I would have rather had, and I couldn't think of it. And, there actually wasn't that many good players then. But I'm rambling. I could ramble about this for days. It's a bad football team. It was a bad loss. Fire everybody.
Well said, Joe. Well said. And I will say it will be interesting to see in week 16, 17 if the Giants or football team do clinch, and this new play caller, if there is one at that time, puts in Jalen Hurts, and you guys both win the games, because I think that would be the final straw for Doug and Carson. And it could be a very Jet situation where Gase and Darnold, not saying Gase is all right, bro, if we're going down, we're going down together. But I can definitely see a very similar thing being hey, you are my guy. It's if we go down, we go down together. So it'll be very interesting to see what the Eagles do.
Yeah. It's just if you can't get rid of Wentz until 23 unless you absorb the most in NFL history dead money. I think it was, if we're going to cut Alshon this year, we're going to cut Deshaun Jackson. There's dead money for both of them. If we also cut Carson Wentz, it comes to almost 30% of our salary cap available to spend on the other players that would actually be playing. A third of of the money that we would have would be in 3 players not on the team. It's not possible. So Wentz is going to be here. Whether Doug, what Lurie is going to be looking for in a new head coach, who quarterback right, who can get 17 status or even decent. Part of me says Brian for the Bills, seeing what he's done with Josh Allen this year, kind of a similar quarterback. A lot of me says Eric Bieniemy with the Chiefs. But then with that, it's just okay, so we're going to fire Doug Peterson after we hired him as the coordinator for the Chiefs and replace him with now the new offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. It's why are we doing this? If we really just wanted all these Andy Reid disciples, we shouldn't have freaking Reid. Oh my God, I say them. I'm sorry.
No, Joe, it's okay. But speaking of that Miles Sanders draft pick, as a Ravens fan, I say you're welcome, but also thank you, because the pick that you one of the picks, or the pick that we got in sending you a couple of picks, was Lamar Jackson. So thank you for that, but also you're welcome for Dallas Goedert and Miles Sanders with your other picks. And now moving, Joe, to the final game of the week that's finally being played on Wednesday.
Can you believe that? Are those? I'm sorry. Let me just say, those two players you mentioned, Dallas Goedert and Manders, those are probably the only two good draft picks Howie Roseman has made over the past, 3 or 4 seasons, and they weren't our picks. We got them from y'all. I mean, sure, I'm beating Howie, but, God, can't do it. So let's hope for the best. God, well,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
bad.
And speaking of the Ravens, Joe, we're playing the Steelers later today on Wednesday. You picked the Steelers. I picked the Ravens. Is any of the recent news? We had no new positives today, so that's great. Brandon Williams got activated from the COVID list, but he is out. I just got a text saying he was out. Are you still going with the Steelers, or are you changing your pick to the Ravens?
I'm Steelers. I mean, Lamar's not going to play, right?
No, but RG3 is 1-0 as a starter for the Ravens, and that one start was against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So,
you never know. I mean, I can't with all of these starters out for the Ravens. The Steelers defense. I mean, this Steelers team is angry. I mean, a lot of people are pissed off about this, and I just think it's stupid. Come on, dude. You signed up to play in a season with the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be schedule changes. Do you really want to play a team with a bunch of positive tests? Do you want to get it yourself? Do you want to go up against the team's backups? If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. So I still think the Steelers are going to win. I think that they're picked at the NFL and the way that, the schedule has been a little favorable to them. But, tough cookies, man. You got to suck it up and you got to play ball. It's football. It's 2020. This shit is crazy. Figure it out and, stop about it. I just don't want to hear it. Just go play football.
And that's
God, I have
my
enough
thing
to complain about for the Eagles.
And that's my thing about it too, is all these Steelers players and fans and media are whining and complaining. It's all right, tough shit. You signed up to play football in a pandemic. So what? You didn't get a bye week. You got a bye week in week 4. The Ravens in 2008, we practiced for a full week like you guys did in week 4. We had a hurricane in Houston. So our bye was week 2. 18 straight weeks of football with the rookie head coach and rookie quarterback. We made it to the AFC Championship game. So I don't want to hear it. Yes, you can complain and blah, blah, blah. But going back to the game, Joe, I can't pick the Steelers in a Ravens-Steelers rivalry. I'm still riding with my boys. We're going to figure it out somehow. Justin Tucker might be kicking 90-yard field goals to get us all of our points. But either way, we're going to win this game. And that's all I have to say about Week 12, Joe. Anything else you have to add from the week or looking ahead?
Here's a question. If RG win, or if the Ravens win and RG3 plays well, is there a QB controversy in Baltimore?
Well, that's a good question, Joe. No, there is no. Lamar Jackson is our quarterback. Now, if
RG3 went top 2, Lamar went 32. I don't know.
Now, if on some green earth that we live on, and RG3 does what Mahomes did yesterday and throws for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, I would consider it. But no, Lamar is our quarterback through and through. It would need to take a lot. It would need to take quite a lot from RG3. But, I mean, that's going to wrap it up this episode, man. We're pretty much at the hour mark. But we're glad you're back, Joe. We're glad football is back. Tune in on Saturday for our picks for Week 13. Once again, we got a couple of Monday night games, and we got a Tuesday night game for Week 13, hopefully,
allegedly.
As scheduled right now. But definitely like this video. Comment down below your pick or your thoughts from the week. Subscribe to the channel. Maybe we'll get you on as a guest as well. And enjoy some football. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you on Saturday.